Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about the 5 things that I wish I had known. This hair. The 5 things that I wish I had known before teaching English in Korea. So, if you don't know, I taught English in Korea from 2015 to 2018. And then I came back to the US and got my master's in something totally different. So yeah, I guess we'll just go ahead and get started. These are just a couple of things that I, looking back, wish I would have known before teaching. And I will start this with a disclaimer that everyone is going to have a little bit of a different experience going to a foreign country. And, just sort of your background. I would say also race and gender definitely plays a role, a part in your experience. And then also, your Office of Education will also. So, with that being said, and one last thing, I also taught there, it's been a minute now. It's been about 5 years. Obviously, it's probably different, post-pandemic that didn't really leave anyone unscathed. But I just wanted to share some insights, kind of retrospectively looking back. So the first thing is you will mostly be teaching out of a textbook. So when I thought teaching English, I thought I was going to have to be kind of creating all these lesson ideas. And for some of your classes, you will have to do that. So for example, for after school classes, you can either ask your co-teacher if you can order a book for those classes, a textbook, and then you can go off of the textbook and make your lessons around that. Or you can kind of Google things, come up with things from online, and then, just kind of plan your lessons around key phrases or like a book or some other kind of material. But for your, and that is also true for camps. You will have to plan camps, mostly with what you come up with, or there are a lot of lesson plans online. I plan to put out a couple of lesson plans for camps and link those down below that you can get, because one point that I ran into was with some co-teachers, they might ask you like 2 days before, hey, I need your 2 weeks worth of lesson plans for camp, in 2 days. So it does take some effort and it does take some planning, but you can basically do anything for those. You can choose a theme like science or baking or, anything really, and then just incorporate English and phrases into it. But that being said, for your regular classes, your school Office of Education, your school and then the Office of Education in the province where you are will have a set textbook. And you should be teaching out of the textbook. And then there are 4 main components of each lesson in Korea, I would say, for English language education, which are reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And I would say for the most part, the textbooks are pretty well written. There are a few lessons where some of the activities are just a little bit, you might not like some of them, but for the most part, you can kind of go off of what's in the textbook. There are a lot of really great plans. And then on that note, a lot of people who come to teach English, they don't have a background in teaching. And so my approach when I taught there was that, someone with a PhD in education, depending on the book, wrote this. And I don't have a background in teaching, so it's good to kind of follow that as you go. Kind of a natural segue into my next point, which is that your co-teacher could have a really big impact on your experience overall in Korea. Yeah, so that's my second point, is your co-teacher can potentially shape a lot of your experience. So Obviously, they are sort of like your entryway and your lifeline in the workplace. And they, you have to work with them on a daily or, I would say a daily basis to plan lessons and to kind of anything related to school. They're going to be sort of like your go-to person. And I was really lucky that like the main co-teacher that I worked with at my school, because I've had maybe like, I want to say 6 in total different co-teachers that I've taught with, but I had like one main one, and her and I really got along well, and we're still friends to this day. And then I know some other people who had like a really difficult time with communication and working with their co-teacher. So I would really suggest, especially in the beginning of the relationship, trying your best to make a good first impression and really develop that, because it could have a big impact on you. And then, for example, like, when I got sick, like my co-teacher took me to the doctor for the first time because I sort of refused to go because, I'm American and we just only go to the doctor when we're dying. Or, at least maybe that's just me. But she took me, and then, she really helped me with a lot of other aspects. Like, I was unfortunately in a car accident when I was there, and she, dealt with the insurance company. That's a whole nother story. But, yeah, I would say the co-teacher could really play a big role in how things go. There are sort of several different kinds of co-teachers that I've encountered. There's one where you both sort of plan in advance, like how the lesson's gonna go, and then you sort of pass. My co-teacher and I used to describe it like passing a ball. So I would say, oh, let's ask teacher, let's just say her name was Teacher Kim, what this is in Korean. Or, we would have a way to pass back and forth and signal each other that, one would lead at that point and then another would lead at the other point. So that was very helpful. And so that kind of true co-teaching where you're both at certain points leading in the lesson is excellent. There are other co-teachers that might come in for the first 5 minutes of class and then go out and leave you there by yourself. And that is a really unfortunate situation because the co-teacher is there to kind of enhance what you're able to bring. You're supposed to enhance each other, essentially. So, like, they're supposed to keep order. They're supposed to discipline the students when they're not doing what they need to do. And then also they can help kind of explain, like, if they're not really getting a concept, like, where is the ball? If they don't understand what the word where is, they can kind of explain that in Korean. And all teachers in Korea, when they pass the exam to teach, they have an interview, an oral interview in English. So they do, pretty much all teachers in Korea have English skills. So they're not supposed to leave you in the classroom alone with the kids. Again, kind of a safety issue, but it does happen. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. And I will make another video about how to effectively work with your co-teacher, probably with my former co-teacher, one of them. So stay tuned for that. Okay. So next is number 3, and that's regarding contract and contract renewal. When you're a teacher with the EPIK program, you will go to a certain office of education in different areas of Korea. And so that office of education will be responsible for your contract and also kind of evaluating you when it comes time to renew your contract. And then they also work to settle any disputes that might happen between you and the school, or any issues that arise. And then additionally, they also many of them provide continuing education workshops, which are great. You will have someone who is like what I had. You may have. What I had was, the coordinator of foreign teachers, and then she was sort of like my boss. And she, whenever there was like an initiative or like they were doing extra classes and they wanted to offer like an English teacher the opportunity to make more money and teach extra classes, then she would reach out to all of us. So in that sense, she was sort of like my boss. And then your co-teacher also, they're not your boss per se, but they kind of, I felt, based on my experience, they feel some sense of responsibility for you at school, and you sort of answer to them, and then they handle a lot of things in the actual, or like if you wanted to like see if you could go a little bit early to like go to the bank or something, you could ask your co-teacher and then they could ask the principal for permission. So like that. In terms of contract renewal, I felt like if you're doing a reasonably good job, that a lot of times they will ask you to renew or see if you're interested in renewing. I feel like they only don't renew it when someone is really being pretty egregiously not professional. And I would say for anyone who wants to teach English in Korea, you should approach this like a job. You should be professional, even if you don't have any teaching experience, because you are representing your country, and the kids in your classroom, they are going to remember you. You know, many people, they remember their first and second grade teachers in elementary school. So, you really don't want to leave a bad impression on them as to, learning English or, what it's like dealing with foreigners, because there is sort of that cultural awareness and cultural sensitivity that you're bringing as a foreigner. So you're in Korea, it has historically been very homogenous, and then you are kind of bringing some diversity into the school generally, right? The dynamics and demographics in Korea are always shifting, and they have shifted a lot recently. But generally, I would just say you should aim to be professional and like like you would any U.S. job. The fourth thing I wish I would have known is Deskwarming. So you probably read about this on Reddit or wayguk.org. Or other online threads, but there is something called Deskwarming, and it kind of depends. It really comes down to your principal. So some of them will make you come in. Deskwarming is where all of the kids are on vacation, usually between like January and like mid-March. So you don't have any classes aside from like 2 weeks of camp, or it could be longer or shorter depending on your school. But your principal may ask you to come in because in your contract, you only have a certain number of vacation days that you're technically allowed to have. So they may ask you to come in even though you don't have anything to do. So in my case, I was asked to come in, and according to my co-teacher, she said it's because a lot of times the schools feel responsible for you as a foreigner. So if like something happened and you weren't at school when you were like technically supposed to be, then they could get in trouble. But there are other principals who will just say like, you don't have to come in, whatever. So for the days that you are at school, for me, I wasn't really able to do very much lesson planning because they didn't assign me the grades I was going to teach until the very beginning of school, which was in March. So I had 2 months where, you can basically work on developing yourself, looking at workshops in teaching, maybe think about taking some Korean classes, but Deskwarming is definitely part of the job. It can be, depending on your principal. So it really depends. But yeah, you may have to do that, and I would go into it expecting to do that, and then just have a plan for like what you can do while you're there. And then lastly, I guess I would say the impact on my future career prospects. So I have found that it was a huge asset for me, teaching in so many ways. the field I went into after I got back was health, but there were so many aspects of, you know, what I learned teaching and then also what I learned living in a foreign country that are so applicable to a lot of jobs. I will say that the actual teaching experience itself maybe sometimes isn't as valued as much as someone who has an actual degree and license in teaching. But overall, I found that there were really a lot of opportunities, and it is really a great asset. I would encourage everyone to you know, do it if you are able and have the interest and really genuinely feel like you would want to do that, and you're really sharing your culture with others. And then you learn, you know, management through teaching. You're managing like 20 kids and you're managing different activities and timelines, you know, for things like camp and all of those. So there's a lot of transferable skills, I would say. So yeah, so just to kind of wrap up, I guess those are kind of the 5 things that I would say I wish I knew before applying to teach English in Korea, is that you'll mostly teach out of a textbook, except for camps and after-school classes. Your co-teacher probably will shape they have the potential to shape a big part of your experience living in Korea. Your contract and like sort of the professional development side, that'll be managed by someone at the Office of Education, and that will probably be an education coordinator for the province that you're in. And then, you know, there are some variations with that, right? There's EPIK and kpop and all of that, but I'm just speaking to EPIK. And then you may have to do Deskwarming. I would suggest you go into it thinking you will have to. And then lastly, I think it's a very positive impact for anyone's future career, possibly with the exception of something like nursing or maybe engineering, where they sort of need to go into it right after they graduate. And yeah, other than that, I couldn't recommend it more. And if you're thinking about teaching English in Korea, please like and follow, because I will be sharing more info in the coming weeks and months about the application process and teaching with a co-teacher, things to do in Seoul, things to bring with you when you go to Korea. So yeah, I guess that's all for now, and until next time, I remain yours, Bye!